we are far, far more than we have ever been told that we have been. 325 AD, the Bible was distorted after the Council of Nicaea. And the 12 books that were written by Miriam, Enoch, Jesus, those 12 books constituting 12 of the 15 missing books in the Bible, they were kept hidden. So what I'm here to do is to just give you the benefit of my opinions about what I have discovered and leave it entirely up to you, as of course it is. It's a free will universe. Leave it entirely up to you to how you choose to interpret what I suggest to you here today. Where would you like me to go with this? Do you want me to begin 950 billion years ago? Or do you want me to start with last Tuesday? It's entirely up to you. Well, first of all, let me tell you that I'm simply giving you the benefit of my opinions about what has really happened throughout our history and my opinions about who we really are. Identity is everything. I first got interested in three things in my life when I was younger: history, mystery, and tennis. And so I did a lot of study of history. I was fascinated by mystery, and so I read a lot of very strange texts back in the day. And then I got introduced to tennis, and tennis introduced me to the wider world, and I became involved in tennis and the sports industry, etc. But after that had all finished, latterly in my life, I got back to history and mystery. And I won't give you all the details of how I managed to get to where I am now here with Jane. But basically, I discovered that so many of the things that we have been taught in school and that have seemed to be the right way to think of our past has actually not been exactly true. And so I embarked on studying all sorts of things over 20, 25 years. And this is why I'm here now, to explain an alternative history to you, an alternative history of you, because we are all interconnected and we're all part of the same tribe, if you see what I mean. And we have all lived on this earth and been subjected to the stories that we have been told are the truth. So what I'm here to do is to just give you the benefit of my opinions about what I have discovered and leave it entirely up to you, as of course it is. It's a free will universe. Leave it entirely up to you to how you choose to interpret what I suggest to you here today. I totally believe it, but we're all different and we're all sovereign beings living under God. That's what I believe. And we have to make our own choices about what we believe and how we act in our daily lives. So that's why I'm here. And I'm always excited to talk about the history of the world. And I'm always excited to talk about what I believe is my true identity. And so when I come out with some of the things that I say to you, it's so that we can share an idea, a possibility that we are far, far more than we have ever been told that we have been. So that's just me in a nutshell. And where would you like me to go with this? Do you want me to begin 950 billion years ago? Or do you want me to start with last Tuesday? It's entirely up to you. What do you think, Jane?
So I think I'd like to start with the first question, because it probably goes back to 950 million years anyway. And it's from Bernadette. And she says, in an ever-expanding multiverse, there can be no beginning. So where does creation come from? Is it the expansion of our frequency that creates our realm?
That's such a superb question. Well, thank you very much, Bernadette, for putting me right on the spot at the very beginning. I can't even warm up to this talk, can I? I've just got to dive straight in. Well, it's a fair question, and a lot of the quantum physicists are now asking it. And of course, they shy away from the answer because they can't measure it. If they can't weigh it and they can't measure it, they can't produce a theory. So not being able to produce a theory, they can only speculate. And quantum physicists, in fact, all physicists, don't like to speculate. So I'm happy to speculate. And I'm going to tell you that, in fact, this particular time matrix began 954 billion years ago. It began, presumably, we could say that it began in a big bang. We're not sure. But where did it come from? How did all this energy, all this material, how did you get here? I mean, such a specific, definite individual full of all different skills and talents and consciousness. How did you get here? Well, it's not an accident. Nothing is an accident. Everything is by design. So what I'm telling you is that it's a divine design. It's a process that was created, what we call first creation principles, whereby some people would say, creator God or God source or God itself decided that it would create us. Well, whatever your title is for this, before this whole universe appeared, there is always pure consciousness. Everything comes from pure consciousness. You can call it any name you like. Some people call it Unisci. Some people call it all that is. But what it is, in fact, is pure consciousness. Pure consciousness of itself is totally and completely sovereign. It's perfect. It's the irreversible perfection of abundance. And it exists interminably. There is no time anyway, except in our lower domain universes. So, and we think that time is linear, but down here in our universes, time is simultaneously. Now, this takes a little bit of getting your head around. It certainly did me. Time is simultaneous. So if you believe in reincarnation, that you have previous lifetimes that you have already existed, let me tell you that in the simultaneous time theory, they are still existing now. They live now as you do here. There is no separation except in frequency, which is what Jane was saying. Now, as you expand your consciousness, you expand the frequency of that consciousness through your understanding of what? Of who you are, of your identity. This becomes pivotal. And in expanding your consciousness, you expand the frequency connections with all of your previous existences and the ones that are in the future. So what you do here and now in this now moment is significant, not just for what you do and what you think and how you develop now, but how all of your other lifetimes and all of your other experiences may be manifested in this same moment, because they're all existing together. Now, Bernadette wanted to know what happened before all this. Well, what happened before was nothing happened, everything was. It is the perfection of abundance, the irreversible perfection of abundance of pure consciousness, which is based on love, absolute love, joy in action, and unity of all things. Everything is connected. And when you have got absolute love running in every frequency particle, you realize that you are an aspect of all one. You are one with all, and that absolute love transcends everything, and absolute love manifests itself in the irreversible perfection of abundance. So what is your identity? Your identity is the irreversible perfection of abundance, pure consciousness. This is who you are. Now, I look at myself, and I will be very straight and honest with you, because that's what I do now. I see myself as having some difficulties with my eyesight. I have a bad back. I'd like to get my teeth fixed. I would like to have darker hair. I could dye it, but I'd like it to be natural. All of these things are what I have been believing were my identity. But of course, now I realize that that is nothing to do with my identity. That is just the physical manifestation of the energies that I've been through putting my body template. Who I really am is my identity, and my identity is the irreversible abundance of perfection. I am pure consciousness, and we are all the same. And that is what we are truly trying to achieve through evolution. Now, we've been told repeatedly by very, very clever people who are experts, and we must believe them because they are experts, that in fact evolution is to do with survival of the fittest, The strongest make it, and physical adaptations. Well, actually, evolution is nothing to do with that. Evolution is to reclaim your own true identity as God source. You are God source. This is who you are. This is who I am. I have manifested myself here as something that quite often my ego says, oh, well, that can't be right because I'm not perfect. I mean, look at this, look at that. But in fact, when we realize that consciousness is everything, the purity of our consciousness, the ability to recognize in love and joy that all is one, then we step into our true identity. That is who we are. And can I just say, just before we go to the next question, that is what all the great philosophical and religious teachers have been trying to tell us, like Jesus. You know, you are the father or the mother. You know, he would say father back in those days because that was accepted. But you are the energy of source. You are the identity of God. And that was what he was trying to say to people who in those days had very, very strict and controlled visions of themselves. So that's what I'm saying to you. I'm standing on the shoulders of people far cleverer and far more enlightened than myself. And slowly I can tell you that I got it. I suddenly began to get the idea of what this is all about. So that's my answer, Bernadette. And I'm sorry it's not a quantum physics one.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much. I'm just so jumping around in my heart. So yeah, beautiful. Thank you so much for expressing it.
Okay.
My thoughts. Thank you.
Okay, my next question, Dave. Thank you for that beautiful description from the last question. I don't know what I'm going to get from this one. They say that you have written that in the instant of your choice to express external worlds, you immediately create this alternative form. So I would like to know if this is a contract with yourself or prime creator source, because they always say it's a contract. You made this contract to come here. Who did you make that contract with?
You made it with yourself, because you are God. Okay, that's sort of like sounds as though I'm just being a little bit trite there. I don't mean to be like that. But essentially, well, there is no contract. It seems as though it is a contract. You know, we live in a 3D world where contracts are big, they're important. In fact, I can tell you in the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, and parts of the sixth dimension, contracts are still used and adhered to. But effectively, what we're talking about is you have a commitment, an assignment with yourself. You see, the pure consciousness of all that is creates 24 God seeds repeatedly. And those 24 God seeds downstep themselves. That's pure consciousness deciding to activate in the lower domains, the holographic realms where we exist. I mean, we don't exist except entirely in heaven, all right, if I can put it as boldly as that. Heaven is within us, it's everywhere. It permanently and forever exists. But here in our holographic realms, our angle of vision is such, and our frequency of consciousness is such, that we see only certain aspects of that heavenly realm. It is here and everywhere, it's in everything. But our consciousness is such that we can see only, we can perceive only those things that our five senses will tell us are real. In fact, we have 12 senses. But down here on Earth, we are activating 5. Some maybe have got 6, you know, clairaudience or something like that. But we're supposed to have 12. So we have very slow and reduced perceptions. So what happens is that the pure consciousness of all that is downsteps a small particle of its consciousness, the pure consciousness, into realms where that consciousness can express itself and know itself outside of the perfection of pure abundance and consciousness. So we have an opportunity to experience what you might call contrast. So your consciousness, or the consciousness of source, is downstepped in 24 God seeds, and those God seeds are downstepped into 12 other lower frequencies of conscious awareness, awareized energy, if you like. And it's constantly downstepped into lower and lower platforms of experience and awareized consciousness. Now, we happen to be here in the lowest dimensional blend of consciousness, the lowest platform. That's dimensions 1, 2, and 3. So what you're looking at now, as you look at yourself in the mirror, and I see myself on this screen here, I am witnessing my own God source self as its incarnate representation. That's what we call it. It's an incarnate. I incarnated here in a physical sense through the quantum that was given to me by my parents so that I could exist here. But my consciousness is of God source. However, because of my perception of myself, I think of myself as a human being on Earth, and that I live in UK, and that I've got this qualification, and I like eating peas, and I love ice cream, and all of these different things. These are all physical manifestations of where I live and exist now. But this is just one part of me. There is another aspect of my identity self in dimensions 4, 5, and 6. That's my soul self. And beyond that, in dimensions 7, 8, and 9, there is another aspect of myself, and that is my oversoul self. And beyond that, yes, there's another platform, which is the dimensions 10 and 11 and 12, and that is my avatar self. And beyond that is my rishi self, and so on, all the way back up the stairway to heaven, where my encryption of my true identity as pure consciousness exists. So I'm here to tell you the very good news that, in fact, you are God source. But you may not believe it in this incarnate form. But what happens if I want to manifest myself in a much more awareized sense of who I am? How can I be my soul self or my oversoul self? Or why can't I be my avatar self? Because that's where Jesus came from, the 12th dimension, and he was an avatar, and he could do all, he could turn himself into light. He could vanish. Now, you see, I quite like that idea of being able to just disappear and then come back, turn myself into light, and, oh, well, this would be wonderful. Well, why can't I do that? It's because my perception codes tell me that I am locked into a particular view of myself. I believe that I am this person. Look what happens when we receive letters from the government or from the banks or from the tax people, the inland revenue. It has a capital letter name, and we think that is us. I believe that's me. So they say, oh, you're liable for this bill. Oh, yes, yeah, I'm liable because that's me. That's not me. That's a corporate fiction that was made up by the government so that I would be liable for all these different bills, etc., etc. No. That's okay for the world and the third dimension. But if you're telling me that that is who I really am, I'm not going to believe you, because I believe I'm more than all of that put together. And so I'm telling you that you are God source. I'm telling me that I am God source. But yes, okay, so I admit that, you look at me now and you listen to me and you know that I'm not a multimillionaire, and you know I haven't got 57,000 degrees, and you know that I don't appear on TV or in Hollywood movies because I'm not that great. And you might say to yourself, oh, this chap, Dave Emery, he's deluding himself when he thinks he's God. But in fact, I'm not deluding myself. What you see before you is my incarnate aspect of my God self. And I'm seeking to expand my consciousness so that I can step into who I truly am. And I believe that you're here listening to me talking about this because you believe it too. I honestly do. And the reason I say that is that you can't come onto forums like this and listen let alone speak and be interested, if you don't run the frequency. If you don't run the frequency of consciousness, you can't connect with some of the things that you've been reading and that you've been saying. You are looking for something. You're seeking something. And when you start to seek for something like this and you look for it, I'm not saying this is right, but when you start looking for it, it's the first sign that your perception codes are expanding. More are joining your frequency of consciousness. And what is happening is your own inner self is saying, there's something more than this, and I want to find out what it is. And so you expand your consciousness. And in the process of expanding your consciousness, it's exponential. It moves you faster and faster and wider until you eventually pick up the codes that you require to return to your own self. We're talking about the pathway home. It's time to go home, folks. I don't mean I want to disappear, tonight, disappear and you never see me again, because I've got a lot of ice cream to eat. I've got a lot of places to visit. I've got a lot of people that I want to see and share time with. But no, the conscious pathway is our heroic pathway back into the light of who we truly are. And I'm not saying anything that is different from people like Jesus. I'm just saying it in a different way. And I'm saying it because I'm ready. I'm ready to make a difference in my identity and to step into who I truly am.
Okay. Thank you, Dave. That was great.
What I wanted to say was, for years, I've said to my family, there's got to be more. It can't just be what we see in the coming home and working and whatever. There's got to be more. I'm not just a mom. I'm not somebody's daughter. I'm not, there's more to life than that. I don't think we were ever meant to be like this. And I love what you said, because it brings it all to light, to more light, how that we're actually a part of creation. We're actually a piece of creation. I believe that's what you're saying. We're a piece of the source of creation is what I mean. We're a piece of the source.
Well, and honestly, it's just me repeating what I've studied and how I've got to be here now, which is really the whole essence. I mean, I could have taken a different turn. I'd never met you. I could have been doing something totally different. But, there are no accidents. You are here because you're here because you're here, because this is the moment that you chose to be here, in this right here with Jane and all your colleagues here and listening to me. And it's the first creation principle is the energy that allows us to downstep our consciousnesses into these different realms where we can experience ourselves as something different. Now, of course, when I was involved very heavily in the sports and the tennis industry, I was very successful. That's quite some time ago now. And I was totally hooked by what I was doing. I was totally focused. In fact, I was so focused on it that I allowed other aspects of my life to be sidetracked. And I made some unfortunate decisions in that sense, because that was who I saw myself as. Oh, I am this very important sports trainer. That is me. And when it all crashed and fell apart, I realized something. I mean, once I'd recovered, I realized that, in fact, that was never me. And I set out to find out who on earth this me was. Because if that wasn't me, and I was very successful and I loved what I was doing, and then it stopped, then what else is there? Well, I resonate totally with what you have just said, because, you're not meant to be anything except what you choose to be. And when you choose to be something else, that is where your energy goes. So the real purpose of our mission here is, I believe anyway, is to discover who we really are. It's our identity. And once we really discover that, then we make complete and total connection with how we can get there, how we can manifest who we truly are. But that doesn't mean that you don't enjoy all the things that you're experiencing. I mean, I still enjoy doing all sorts of different things. And why not? You know, it's a choice. But the important thing is that I'm now aware of the bigger issue. I'm now aware of the much more important purpose that I have. And that is, for example, sharing with Jane her work in expanding consciousness, expanding our awareness of what truly is. Because we have been dumbed down and told things that are not true. I'm sorry to say this. 40 years ago, I used to believe everything that was read in the newspapers. I did, I admit it. Everything that was in the TV must be true, because they wouldn't tell us anything different. Well, now, of course, I've grown up in that sense. And I realize that, in fact, a lot of this information we've been told about the past and what we're supposed to do and how we're expected to live is not at all connected with who we really are. So I resonate with what you've just said to me. Who was just talking just then? Is that?
That was Vicky. Vicky, she's our never-ending question person.
Okay, well, yeah, I totally resonate with what you said, Vicky. You know, you are, first of all, you are your fully conscious, awareized identity as God source. That is who you are. What you choose to do in your lifetimes here and in other realms is entirely up to you. But perhaps the most important thing to remember always is your celestial, divine identity, because that is really who you are.
Okay, thank you, Dave. So what would you like to do now? I know you sent me some graphics, and there's also your Song of Orion that you brought in. Maybe I think it's a good time maybe to say the powerfulness and the meaning of the Song of Orion, what it is now that it's available to us, and so that everyone here can be brought into that resonance or frequency. What do you think about that?
Well, that's fine. Whatever you feel you'd like to do. Before I go on to that, I think I need to give some context for you with regard to frequency codes. There are codes of light and sound everywhere. You see them every single day that you see them on the television. You read about them. You see them in signs all around, everywhere you drive and you walk. Symbol codes of sound and light are everywhere. And most of them are actually very low frequency. I could go into detail, but that's actually Jane's area of expertise, all of that sort of information. But let me just say that you're listening here because you feel that it is important, because it makes a difference to the expansion of your frequency, of your consciousness, because consciousness is everything. Consciousness is energy, and energy is conscious. And so with regard to the Song of Orion, why should I be even suggesting that I sort of sing this very brief song to you? And so I need to give you some context. So how can I do that? You see, what has happened here on Earth over the last 30,000 years is that there has been a deliberate attempt to reduce and hold back the expansion of your frequency. Now, frequency operates in two ways: oscillation, which is light, and vibration, which is sound. So you're listening to my voice, and it carries a frequency. And the words I'm saying are carrying a frequency. And also the pictures of all of us are carrying a frequency. And that oscillation and vibration can either be very high and expanding, or it can be very low and contracting. Now, if I showed you some pictures, I won't even describe them, but if I showed you some pictures and some sound tones of very unfortunate, nasty things, which we know exist, what would happen is that your frequency of consciousness would contract. I know all this because when I was a sports trainer, I used to do muscle testing. And I used to get even strong guys on the stage to put their arm out, and I would press down on their arm, the deltoid test, and I'd press down and they'd be strong. I couldn't push their arm down. So I would show them a cigarette or a glass of or a bottle of vodka, right? Sometimes I'd put the cigarette on their other shoulder, and I'd say, okay, I'm going to test you again. And they'd test weak. And why? Now, I'm not against chocolate or vodka or cigarettes. Do what you want to do. Your choice. Honestly, it is. And I love chocolate, by the way. But what I'm saying is that certain materials carry a certain frequency, and certain pictures, sounds, symbols, they all carry frequency. And what we do, what's happening with us, we are bombarded daily with all of these frequencies, and we don't pay any attention. But some of them are contracting our frequency of consciousness. Some of them are slowing us down, and some of us are being expanded. Okay, I'll give you an example of an expanded frequency. Ready for this? When my grandson, who's 12 now, when he was 4, I went to his nursery school to pick him up. And I was just standing there. It felt like a bit of a spare part with all these ladies, running around for their children. I was just standing there. And suddenly Miles saw me in the distance. And he ran full pelt up to me and jumped up at me saying, "Grandpa!" And I grabbed him. And what a frequency charge I got for that. Oh my goodness, that was one of the biggest frequency charges I have ever had. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about frequency charging, whereby in an instant, your frequency of consciousness expands instantly like that. And that affects the whole of your physical body. It does. And your emotional body and your mental body. Everything expands. That's the frequency of consciousness. So what is it I'm talking about with regard to the Song of Orion? Well, it's a frequency code. It's a geomantic code which has been created hundreds of thousands of years ago and has not been able to access this realm for thousands of years. Why? Because this realm has been trapped in time for so long, until about the year 2000. That's why Jesus came here. The character, the entity we know as Jesus, came here in 10 BC to help us expand our frequency. And he put into the frequency grids of Earth, and therefore of ourselves, because we're connected with Earth. Earth is our mother, and we are her children. And so when her morphogenetic field of consciousness, because she's real, she exists as an individual being, when her morphogenetic field expands her consciousness, then so too does ours. So I will get to the Song of Orion, because we're talking about the expansion of consciousness. Jane, have you got those codes, the Vecca codes? Can you show them?
Yeah. The Vecca codes or the Flame Wind Song? Is that one of them, or is it the...
No, the coloured Vecca codes, just to explain.
Okay, let me share my screen.
Okay. Can you all see those?
Yes.
Those are called the Vecca codes. There are actually 12 of them. Now, the entity Jeshua 12, we call him Jesus, was born in 10 BC. His real name was Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek, of the Melchizedek line. And he came to do specific things. He came really to set us up. That's all of us here today, and myself, to set us up for frequency of expansion of consciousness, so that we could have the codes to be able to ascend into our soul, oversoul, avatar self, whatever we choose. And he had to put these codes into the grids of Earth, because if he got them into the grids of Earth, they would get into the grids of our own selves. These are the Vecca codes. There are 12 of them. Well, actually, there are 13. And each one of these is for the 12 days of Christmas. And the 13th was the Akasha code. These are the other 6, that makes 12. And the Akasha code is the God seed code that I spoke of. And that is the 13th code, and came in on the 2nd of January. We call it the 2nd of January. So you backdate, there are 13 codes. There's the Akasha code. That's the sound tone for the Akasha God seed code is Uma Etre Ina E. So we have just shown you that code, which has expanded your frequency fields, and I've just told you the sound tone, uma e tre ina e, and that helps to expand your frequency codes. All of those 12 Vecca codes, the 12 codes of Christmas, were put into the grids by Jeshua Sananda Melchizedek for our benefit. And because of that, he did some other things, of course, but because of that, we are able to make the ascension codes work for us in this time now. That's why we're going through a crazy world. I mean, I'm assuming you've noticed that this world is pretty crazy. Well, that's the reason, because the ascension codes have been fixed. We are going to ascend if we choose. Some people will choose not to. But if we choose to change our frequency of consciousness, this is the opportunity we have been waiting for, because we have the codes. All of you have got these codes within you. You don't have to use them, but they're in there. So you can access them, including the Akasha Godseed code, which are incredibly powerful codes. These are codes that expand frequency of consciousness, and there are lots of them. And a lot of things are coming back online, as it were, and one of them is the Song of Orion. Now, if you want to put the Song of Orion up, I will sing that for you. Okay, but first of all, let me explain this. You see, you have 12 strands, 12 dimensional strands, all right? In fact, some of us now have 24, 36, 48, because we have been upgraded. And the reason we were upgraded is because a lot of bad things happened in 2011, 2012, and had to be fixed. And they were. And the fixing was done in December 2016. So those beings, we'll call ourselves beings here, all those beings who chose to accept the extra strands have now got them. So what does that mean? Well, for about 100,000 years, and that includes your past lives, by the way, are in there in the last 100,000 years. A lot of the DNA strands were inactive. They were what we call junk DNA. You might have heard of that. The scientists believe that, we just have a few strands of DNA active, and they're not quite sure what they do, and the rest of it is all this junk stuff. Well, let me tell you that you had 12 strands of DNA back in the day, hundreds of thousands of years ago, but you couldn't access it all. And because you couldn't access them all, you couldn't ascend. You were trapped here on Earth. Your past lives have been trapped here. But you are going to make the difference for all of them. Now, the Area Kumnare was a pre-ancient song which was designed to activate and reconstitute the first 8 strands of your DNA strand template. The first 8 strands. That would immediately mean you could get in touch with your oversoul self, your oversoul identity in dimension 8 or 7 or 8 or 7 or 8. So when I sing this to you, and it's very, very simple, I am going to help you. Well, no, you will choose. If you don't want this to work, it won't work. So don't be afraid of anything like this. All right. If you do want it to work, if you accept it, you will find that your DNA strand 1 through 8 are going to start activating. Now, with me, I didn't feel anything, but people I have sung this to have afterwards said, well, yeah, I definitely felt something. You may or you may not. But the point about this is a high frequency sound code, which comes straight from the higher dimensions. And it was designed always to do healing and to expand consciousness through the DNA strand. So here we go. It's the Area Kumnare, which is known as the Song of Orion, which is dimension 8. Umeda e patama, umeda e patama, patama e data e kumna, umeda e patama, umeda e patama, patama e data e kumna, tretela e durana, tretela E durumna durama e kemta e kumna tretela e durumna tretela e durumna durama e kemta e kumna. So it's a very, very simple song, and yet it is very powerful. There are a lot of these code songs coming out now, and you can access them, and you can sing them, and you can empower your frequency codes and your body template. A lot of them are very, very healing. If we run through these ones here, I hope you can all see them. The Biovaca code, the first one that Jeshua Jesus encoded into the earth grid, is the High-Vecca code for dimensions 10, 11, and 12. The Tri-Vecca is for the primal light and sound fields. The Ku-Vecca is for the primal sound fields in themselves. They're very powerful. Then the Da-Vecca is the triadic. The Ra-Vecca is the polaric, and they all have different functions, and they all reference your frequencies up to the higher levels of identity. So you have all of these within you if you choose to use them. Now, I will just say that there are quite a few people or beings on Earth who are incapable, they're not able to access these code frequencies. In fact, if they were sitting here listening to, well, they wouldn't be hearing me and they wouldn't be seeing these. It would be like a blank screen, or the mute's gone on. All right. And that's because their perception codes are unable to pick up on what we've been talking about here. So there are a lot of beings on Earth currently who are not able to expand frequency of consciousness. And that is simply a choice for them. Fortunately, we are not in that position here today. Was that a bit heavy for you all? I hope not.
No, that was beautiful. And those codes.
There's someone here, Dave, in our audience who is absolutely amazing. His name is Alex, and he measures the frequency of whales.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yep, and he's here, and I'm so glad he's here, and I'm sure absolutely enjoying it. All right, so now after we've done all that and talked about the frequency and everything, I was wondering maybe if Alex had a question. Been doing work with ancient artifacts and whales and Gobli and all of that. We'll see if he comes on.
Okay.
In the meantime, I'll ask one of the questions that were submitted before, and this one is from Linda. And it's a combination of questions. One is from me, because I found out about Operation Indigo Skyfold, and I was wondering, and it's a chemtrailing operation, and I was wondering if that was in particular directed at the Indigo people, the Indigos that are on the Earth right now, if we're such a threat to them that they have to do this huge chemtrailing spraying thing that's been going on since the 1990s. And Linda's part of the question is, will we Indigos know what to do and when to do it?
Well, Linda, it's a very astute observation you've made there. And the answer is yes, you will. Because pure consciousness awareness gives you the ability to make critical divine decisions without worrying about the consequences. Because of this consciousness frequency that you have, as you expand it, you step into the ability to just make decisions which are designed to recreate and re-establish your divine celestial inheritance. And so you must never be afraid of such things, because that is beyond all, lower realm energies. You can't be affected when you make decisions of a divine and a celestial nature. Once you feel in your heart chakra that what you are doing for yourself and for your family is right. But essentially, we're talking about you personally. So it's a very astute question. But when you're on the divine celestial pathway, the heroic pathway, which we all are on, be not afraid. You will choose the right options. You will take the right road all the time once you're on that highway. I hope that answers that one.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. You're doing amazing. How are you doing? Do you need a break? Would you like to?
No. Well, because what happens when you talk about these things, these energies, they expand you, they uplift you, they increase your frequency, so you get a high, really. So I'm fine. I don't even need a bottle of vodka.
Okay.
Well, let me answer your question about the indigos. Right. Well, I'm going to make a couple of revelations here for you, and you don't have to believe anything I say. I won't be offended if you think I'm talking rubbish, right? I will be perfectly happy. But I'm going to say some things because listening to, watching you here and knowing that you're here and listening, I can tell you that your previous lifetimes go all the way back 800,000 years. 800,000 years ago, you had your first life incarnation of who you are now. Of course, you looked very different. Things were totally different 800,000 years ago. And the reason I'm saying that is that the frequency that's coming through the screen to me from you is such that I can be confident about what I'm saying. Now, that means that you are what we call angelic humans. So I have to say that what we've been told about, we descend from chimpanzees and lemurs and baboons and all that sort of thing. Don't believe it. It's rubbish. You are an angelic human. You have always been an angelic human. And in fact, I can tell you that the angelic humans from 800,000 years ago were keepers of the blue flame. And the blue flame is the fifth dimensional frequencies that you need to absorb to be able to ascend into your soul incarnation, your soul identity. So the keepers of the blue flame were very, very important. And many of them were indigos. Now, what is an indigo? Okay. Well, I bet you we're all indigos, for sure. I know Jane is an indigo, okay? And an indigo is an angelic human with sixth strand active. That means that your sixth strand, which the color symbol code for the sixth strand is indigo. You know this LGBT protocol that they've introduced? The very interesting thing is that when they show you the colors, the indigo is missing. They've taken the indigo out. Now, do you think that's just an accident? No, there's no accidents. The indigos are very powerful frequency generators and transmitters. So all of us here as indigos are transmitting very high frequency, particularly when we're in the high frequency mode. And that is, it's almost like sending a pillar of light up into the universe. You can be seen by anybody who has got the right radionic equipment. They can see the pillar of light, because indigos are very important. And there are three types: type 1, type 2, type 3. Now, I'm an indigo. I don't know which one I am, but I'll tell you what the type 3s were. Type 3s were targeted very, very heavily. One of the ways in which they were targeted, and, forgive me if I'm affecting or I'm mentioning anybody here whose family affected in this way, but type 3 indigos were badly affected by ADHD and ADD. You've heard of those? And they were prescribed medicines to help them. I actually used to work in my sports industry with some ADHD young people. And back in the 80s, I didn't know about it all. But indigo type 3s are usually ADHD and ADD. And these are because they were targeted to reduce their ability to be effective as transmitters of high frequency. It would wreck their ability to interface with the morphogenetic field of Earth and other people. Now, chemtrails are designed to affect all angelic humans, but particularly indigos, because we hold the frequency. We are frequency holders. And for 30,000 years, angelic humans and indigos have been targets. We have just been mercilessly targeted by specific groups of fallen angels. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit wacky, but that's what's happened. And the fallen angels created human hybrids, and the human hybrids are essentially the elite people who have been running this planet for 30,000 years. I could even name names, but I won't, because you're getting the picture here. Indigos have been targeted. Angelic humans have been targeted. You have been targeted. I have been targeted. Not in any great way, but just think of some, I mean, for example, Yeshua Sananda, Jesus, was targeted, even though the Pharisees and the Sadducees didn't actually know who he was. You know, when Herod sent all those soldiers to kill the children in Bethlehem, that is a fact. That did happen. And why? Because they knew through the fallen angelic energies that this particular 12th dimensional avatar was going to come to Earth to set us up for 2000 AD when we would begin to ascend. And they didn't want it to happen. So they tried to kill every child so they'd get him. Collateral damage. They've never been worried about that. But in fact, there was another Jesus called Jeshua 9. He was a 9th dimensional avatar. Jeshua Sananda, the 12th dimensional avatar, was born in 10 BC. And Jeshua 9 was born in 5 BC. And it was Jeshua 9 whose words were written into the scriptures. It was he who walked around doing the Sermon on the Mount and so on and so forth. But behind him was Jeshua 12. And Jeshua 12 was doing the more dynamic frequency of consciousness work with the genetic field of the Earth, and with helping people to ascend through the Egyptian pyramid, the blue flame pyramid in the pyramid of Egypt. He was doing all of those things while Jeshua 9 was talking about all the things we've read in the Bible. And the idea is that Jeshua 12 was seriously being hunted down. So they decided that they'd try to get Jeshua 9, and they nearly did, but he got exiled. They sent him off. Actually, he went to France. So when you hear stories about Jesus going to France, it was Jeshua 9 who went to France with Mary Magdalene. It was Jeshua 9 who was born of Mary and Joseph. Jeshua 12 was born of Jehuah and Jehuah. And they're totally different. They were Hebrew Melchizedeks. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because all the primary indigos on this planet for thousands of years have been targets. Even the speaker now, who you've probably heard of, Ashiana Dean, who now goes under the title of Eisha, she is bringing all this work. I mean, I stand totally on, almost totally on her shoulders. What a wonderful being she is. She's from another dimension, a much higher dimension. And she came here to bring the Emerald Covenant teachings, which I'm just passing on to you. You know, I'm just a mouthpiece, and that's all I'm doing. But she was targeted too, and had a very, 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 very tough time in 2009 through to 2011. I won't give you the details, because if I did, you'd be appalled at how she was a target. But in fact, back in when Jeshua 12 was existing, Jeshua 12 was speaker number 2. Speaker number 3 was Miriam, who was Jeshua 12's half-sister, Cananda. And Miriam is now the reincarnation, or the Ashiana Dean is the reincarnation of Miriam, who was speaker number 3 back in Jesus' time. So who was speaker number 1, you might be saying? John the Baptist. John the Baptist was older. He was born in 31 BC. He was speaker 1 back then. So what's happened to him? Well, Speaker 1, John the Baptist, was, as you know, in the history texts, he was murdered by the Romans, effectively. He couldn't write his 3 books. Miriam wrote her books about the covenant cloister, how to live in a covenant world. Jesus wrote books of maps and keys, how the inner grids of frequency of the earth work, and the Amenti tables, how the sphere of Amenti works for us. John the Baptist never got to write his. But John the Baptist came back, and he was incarnated as speaker number 2 in this life. And he married Ashiana Dean. So I could tell you lots of other things, because there have been speakers of the Emerald Covenant tablets. All the information that I'm giving you, they've been repeatedly sent to Earth to explain to us as humans what we need to do to expand our consciousness, to step into the identity, our divine identity as we truly are. And every single time they got stopped, something happened. I haven't got all the dates here, but I'll just read some of them from here. 10,000 BC, in Tibet and China, there were speakers, and they were hunted down by Mongolian raiders. And the Mongolian raiders were sent there to nail these indigo people who were talking and telling the truth, by the human hybrids who were running Tibet and China at the time. They were in cahoots with the fallen angelics who had sent them there. So what else have we got? 8,900 BC, the Hebrews who were living in Sumeria at the time, they tried to tell all of this information, and they were hunted down. In 8,400 BC, they had speakers in Egypt trying to explain to the people how they could expand their divine consciousness, and they were hunted down. Then we got 7,500. There was the Celtics, the Celtic Druidic clans. They were very, very high divine celestial beings. They were hunted down when they tried to say this, and they were finished off by the Romans in 70 BC. In 70 BC, yeah, 70 AD. Then you've got the Rama Indian, 5,900 BC. They tried to explain what's been going on, and they were hunted down. That led to the Kentaurian Wars, which you've read about in the Mahabharata, where they had all these vimanas, these spaceships flying around, and nuclear waste and all sorts of things. There was a huge war then. And then you've got the Incas, 4,700 BC. You know, the archaeologists tell us that there was nothing going on in 4,700 BC where the Incas were. There was just jungle, etc., and mountains. Well, in fact, the Incas tried to tell all of this information, and they were hunted down. And the Mayans, 1,000 years later, were hunted down by Thoth of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth. They were hunted down because they were telling stuff. Our whole history has not been a pageant. It's been a catalogue of interruptions and distortions. In fact, in 325 AD, the Bible was distorted after the Council of Nicaea. And the 12 books that were written by Miriam, Enoch, Jesus, those 12 books constituting 12 of the 15 missing books in the Bible, they were kept hidden by the Council of Nicaea and the Church of Rome, and all the other writings were made up or distorted. Now, they threw lots and lots of truths were in there, but the basic premise was to distort and to eliminate. And that is how the church took over Jeshua's words of wisdom, of divine celestial frequency expansion, which they had brought to the grids of earth. The Church of Rome deliberately misplaced it, distorted it, and used it as a mechanism to be able to control this planetary realm. Now, Jane has got all that history far better than I have, but that's essentially what has really been happening here. And some other people throughout history, have you heard of the Cathars? The Cathars were entirely connected with this material, the divine celestial expansion of consciousness, according to all the codes. And they held one of the critical plates of information called a CDT plate. Plus, they had copies, written copies of the books of Jesus and Miriam. And that's the primary reason why the Church of Rome in 1244 massacred them all, burnt them at the stake, and hunted them down. Not because they wanted the gold, but because they wanted to stop this angelic indigo expansion of consciousness, because it would destroy their control of the world. And I'll say one thing about the Templars, the Knights Templars. In 1119, Hugh de Payen and 6 knights, or I think 5 knights, including him, that was 6 knights of Templar, were given special dispensation to dig in the lower sections of the Temple of Solomon. That's after the Crusaders took Jerusalem. And they were digging away, and they found something. And for centuries, it's been legendary that they must have found gold, because they became so rich. They became incredibly wealthy and so powerful. And they took on the bankers, and they became bankers. Oh my goodness, what did they find in the depths of the Solomon's temple? Well, what they found was one of the CDT plates. And the CDT plates are where we get all this information that I'm telling you, and that Ashiana Dean passes on, and that Jeshua had. All of that information was on 12 CDT plates, they're called. I won't describe what they are. They're small discs, actually. And you could play them holographically, yes, even back thousands of years ago, and they would tell you how the earth worked, how the universe worked, how to expand your consciousness, all the details of history and how we got to be here. Everything was in there, because Thoth copied that and put it into his emerald tablets of Thoth and eliminated the bits that he didn't want. So what did the Templars find in the Temple of Solomon? They found a CDT plate, and they used that information to enhance their ability to control the world through banking. Lots of information was in there. In fact, 2 of those CDT plates were stolen, and they couldn't be found until 1600. One of them was found in 1600 and returned to the Azurite collective who look after them. And the last one was found in November of 1999 in London, England. And it had been held by a Freemasons family ever since Atlantean times, 23,000 years ago. So what am I saying? I'm saying that indigos have been hunted. I'm saying that this information that I'm passing on, and Ashiana Dean has passed on, has been extant in our realm for hundreds of thousands of years. And I'm saying that it's time now, this time, for us to expand our consciousness and step into the true state of who we are. Each one of us, male, female, it doesn't matter. Child, we're all the same, and we're all connected with everything else. And this is a message that the human hybrids who've been running Earth for thousands of years have never wanted anyone to know.
Wow, Dave, you are absolutely amazing. And everyone here should feel so fortunate to be here and listen to this. It's incredible information. Really, you're outstanding with everything, your knowledge. And we have today with us Alex Ling. And Alex, you can wave at me if you don't want to do this, but I would love to introduce you. Is that all right with you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Hello. Hello, Dave.
Hello. Very nice to see you.
This was incredible. I have goosebumps all over. This is exactly the kind of material I'm researching as well, and it ties in with all my research. Absolutely spot on. Incredible. Yes. So, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, you're working, studying whales, aren't you?
Yes, my research is quite complex. So I have a medical background and then went into functional medicine and then started to look into frequencies, and my passion is to work with megalithic sites and stones, and also I'm connecting stones with all the frequencies, of course, not just from the earth, but within the stone. I'm working with water, the memory of water,
Wow. Awesome.
all the the tiniest parts of water within the crystal, which again contain all the information of our creation, if you like. So just of late, I have been working with frequencies in such a way that we have recorded actually some of the first sounds ever coming from stones, and we had a signal going into the stone, and then we had a huge delay from the signal. So basically, the stone changed the whole frequency of the signal, and that was due to a sound we used, which came from a frequency of the whale sound. So that's why I'm particularly interested in that as well. So, and that knowledge actually came from way back about 14,000 years ago. There was a group in Sumeria, the Haranians, which were extremely knowledgeable. And so it's a whole lot of, it's so much information there. But yes, well, I'm so interested in your research as well now. So it's incredible.
Well, thank you for what you've just said there. And it corroborates, we're all on the same pathway to discover as much as we can about what the real truth is, because we've had this truth hidden from us for so long. So wonderful to hear about your work. I would love to. Have you written a book about this?
No, I haven't. I'm in the process actually of doing that, but because I'm researching, I'm traveling an awful lot and doing all my research, and also I'm giving a lot of talks and things like that. So, but also a lot of my information came from my father, who was actually a Freemason, 33 degrees. So, and even so, we didn't have a very good connection. In the end, he actually told me a lot of the truth, what was really going on. He was one of the people who would go to auctions and purchase these kind of artifacts for these kind of orders. So I know for sure there's a lot of things which have been stolen and is held and hidden. All the history we know as we know it is completely false. So definitely.
Oh, Jane, you got to get this guy on the screen. Get him to give a talk. It'd be awesome.
Debbie, my sister Debbie introduced me to Alex. Remember, you were going to go. I forgot where it was. Deb, where was it?
Sorry, me. You're talking to me?
No.
Yeah, New Year, and we were in Glastonbury, Somerset.
Oh,
in England. And you were going to come and join us potentially. But it just
yes, I couldn't do. Yeah, that would have been awesome. I'd have loved that. But
and you would have met Alex.
Oh, right. Okay.
Live and direct next time.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, well, now I've got a face. I've got two faces.
Hi, Debbie.
Wonderful. Well, that's awesome. No, thank you very much for the invite. I'm sorry I couldn't make it, but let's see if we can do it for the next time. That would be terrific.
I have to say just very shortly, the song of Orion, I have to say that yes, there you go. The song of Orion, Dave, when you started to sing it, the whole atmosphere, the whole frequency in our house changed. Absolutely incredible. I would love to play this to the Stones and make a recording from it.
Or sing it with the Stones. Can we get the words?
Yes. We definitely. I would love to have you there when we do this. That would be incredible.
Yeah. Well, there are some very powerful songs. They originally were known as spelt PSONNS, meaning songs. They were the songs of the spheres. And it was the songs of the spheres that could re-encrypt the DNA coding of all beings. If you managed to sing them, that's why they were kept away from us and hidden for so long. But yes, sound is so important, like you've just been saying.
Absolutely, sound and water. I mean, it's just an incredible. It's like the supercomputer of nature, and our whole history is stored in this waters. And our ancestors, the ancient people, they knew about this, so they would call the water the cosmic oceans. So they knew exactly how important it was to connect to it.
Yeah. Jane, am I allowed to say something on that?
Oh my goodness, Dave, stop it.
Okay. All right. Talking about water, I don't know if can you see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, that is a picture of the Alareya Rashatan code. It's called the feel-good code. But it's a very beautiful code, and it's a feel-good code. What it really means is that it expands the physical properties of the body through the water. It's got 6 places to put your fingers, okay? Because originally angelic humans had 12 toes and 12 fingers. There is one tribe in Ecuador which actually does have 12 toes, 12 fingers. And they think we think that's the only angelic human tribe left. Anyway, I will read you what it says on here for the feel-good code, because it's so apropos, Alex, to what you're saying. It's called the Alareya Rashatan Aquatone Axiotonal and Chakra Healing Chart through water. The Alareya Rashatan feel-good code is the calling code for protoplasm, pre-substance hydrolase, the pre-substance hydroacoustic compound element that is organic, living, pre-water. It is pre-substance D3H2O2HE3, D2O2H2N3. That's the physical genomic connection, which speaks to hydrolase endoplasma atomic hydrolase, that is the organic atomic living water, which is the atomic hydroacoustic compound element water matter base, of which 144 organic living elements are composed.
Wow. That is wow.
Isn't that interesting?
That is very, very interesting. And it ties in again so much with what my research is about water. It makes complete sense. Yes, absolutely. I see water as a consciousness anyway. It's living, as you say. It's so important that we're reconnecting with it. And that's basically what I'm trying to do, to get people to listen and to see water not just as something to hydrate our bodies, but to really go and communicate with the water and expand our consciousness again. So it's so important where we are at the moment. So it's so much incredible movement towards this kind of things, which is I'm just so pleased about it. I hear this all the time from all the people around me, and the understanding. There's so many different researchers coming out now and tying in exactly with what we are saying. And it could be better. It's amazing. It's just the right time. Would be lovely to meet you at some point.
Okay, I'd love to do that. That would be great.
I'll set that up.
Just as we're talking, can everyone read that book?
Yeah, there.
What?
Aliens.
Oh, that's hello there. That's
and fallen angels.
Well, there you go. So we're talking about the same things. This is awesome.
Offspring of the gods.
And wait for it. I know I've met one of the guys who picked up 2 CDTs.
No.
In Afghanistan. Yep.
Oh, how awesome.
Well, and he also ended up fighting 2 Nephilim while there.
Right.
So the Nephilim were, let's say, protecting the area.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, you see, isn't the really exciting thing about this is they can't put the stopper on this anymore. It's already out there. They can't. Yeah.
No, we're right on top this time. This is it.
Let's put history back where it was meant to.
Exactly.
And when we raise the frequency as well, we'll get that Tesla technology out there when it matches the frequency of humanity. So stay high vibed.
Yes.
If you want clean energy,
for sure.
we are the best AI when we know it. We're just getting there.
Yeah.
Little steps.
We are the reset.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Well said, Eric. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Jane, you've really brought together a special group of people here. That's awesome.
Yes, I know. I'm thoroughly just so pleased with how this all turned out. I'm sure it's going to be of great interest to very many people. And I thank you, Dave. And I know we've been going on almost an hour and a half now. And I didn't want to go without giving anyone a chance to ask a question. I also want to say thank you very much, and I want to see how you're doing. If you're ready to end now, or do you have a few minutes for some questions?
I ought to think of. I got another 10 minutes, and so I could answer a question if you would like.
Okay, that's wonderful, Dave. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, between us, everybody could answer it.
Mine's a bit obscure in the beginning. You referred to the Big Bang Theory, and I so don't believe that. But if creation is always expanding, wouldn't it make sense that love was the starting point? Because that is the point of creation and expansion, the frequency of love.
Absolutely. In fact, absolute love, omni-love, is the core precept of pure consciousness. You can't have absolute love until you have an awareness of oneness, of the unity consciousness of all, that everything is connected. And let me step out into a really unusual realm here, probably, maybe. Alex was talking about stones, all right? Simple stones that he collects and he studies and he researches and he does experiments on. And we'd think to ourselves, oh, that's just a stone. What's so big about that? But in fact, you see, the stone is composed of particles. And the particles are all God source. Every particle is a particle of God source. Every particle is a particle of pure consciousness. Now, I know, you pick up the stone and you think that can't be true. But that is true. Everything is God source. It is everywhere. And when you start to feel that, it comes up from inside you, and you start to feel, do you know what? I'm connected with everything. It's unity consciousness is everything. That is what it is that expands your sense of absolute love. And absolute love is, you're quite correct, is the core of first creation. You can only feel that when you realize that you are one with everything, including the particles of the rocks. You can talk to the rocks. Well, Alex talks to the rocks. I bet you Alex talks to the rocks. He may not be using English language or whatever it is, but he's mentally, emotionally talking to those rocks, and they are responding. It's like, I hug trees and walk out into the grass in my bare feet. The local neighbors think I'm extremely strange. But the whole point is that we expand our own electron field once we get connection in unity consciousness. So the answer to the question is, you're right. Absolute love is the core of the universe. And when you realize that we are all one, that absolute love exponentially expands and it cures everything. It cures absolutely everything. So I'm working on that currently because there are still some things that I don't quite connect with. Raisins is one. I don't like raisins. I'm trying hard to learn to love raisins.
Stew them.
Okay, do them with love. Yeah, okay,
Let's
right.
do the love. I want to say something else. Would this be a fair statement to say? We are all energy and frequency, and nothing is solid. And our thoughts are as relevant as what we perceive to be solid, in that they are frequency and powerful as well. And we are unaware of that in that same way that a fish doesn't know it's wet when it's in a pond of water.
That's very good. I'd never heard that before. I must talk to some
I made
fish.
it up. I told Eric, that's all.
I think you're absolutely right. Everything, like I said, that heaven is all around us and all within us. It's everywhere. You see, space and time don't really exist. They're constructs of crystallized light and sound scalar waves in this holographic universe. And so our perception codes pick up all around us that this comb is solid, and I can tap my hand and it exists, etc. But in fact, everything is it's all an illusion. Everything is all in the same. Yeah, everything is in the same place, in the same time span. So heaven is right here and now. The question really is, can we get our perception codes to expand in frequency enough so that we can see things as it truly is. And I guess
that's how we
yeah,
see
good
spaceship
thinking.
Earth and our beings. We have to feel it into being into the direction we want to be. We want to take it. When we're driving a car, we don't just look at the bonnet. We look at the beautiful horizon and the sunset and the view, and we feel great. And we see that as our future, and that's what we manifest. The frequencies come into resonance with each other, and they have to manifest, right? We are the angel intelligence, the AI.
Yes, I think. Look, you've got so many speakers on in for future reference here, Jane. You could do a program every week.
Me, this has been fascinating, and I would like to thank everybody who came, and especially you, Dave, and wonderful for Alex being here. That was wonderful. I hope one day I meet you, and of course, Eric, I hope one day I meet you too. And I want to thank everyone for being here. And I think that we've absolutely sucked Dave Emery dry of everything he has.
I'm going to study something else now because there's nothing left.
So I'll just.
But look. Thank you very much for inviting me. I really appreciated meeting every single one of you and talking with you, sharing with you ideas. We all have different perceptions about different things. We all have different levels of knowledge and understanding about all sorts of things. All we did today was to share some ideas, and it was absolutely uplifting. You really expanded my frequency of consciousness. I want to say thank you very much, and I hope we can do it again sometime.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Okay. Speak to you soon, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Miss Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Thanks, Dave.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm so glad you made it.
Speak soon.
Thank you. It was wonderful.
That was awesome.
Love you guys.
Jane, bye. But wonderful to meet new family, and I just felt so at home with everyone here. You should set up a couple of groups or a group.
We will.
Everybody that was supposed to be here was here.
Yeah. Right.
Can't wait for your next one.
I love you all.
Bye.
Love you.
you
Thank
too.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.